Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for The Sun, the Moon, and the Truth. My name is Natalie Backman, and my co-host is Karina Guthrie. And our guest today is Mirabelle D'Cunha. Mirabelle and I met through a workshop with Tracy Stanley. And there was something about Mirabelle that I imagine all of you will begin to sense immediately, that just drew both my head and my heart to her. And we took advantage of an opportunity to connect outside of that workshop. And what has begun to blossom and already beginning to grow as well is what I consider to be a really beautiful friendship and sisterhood, and sort of a mutual love and devotion to the goddess. um, I want to welcome you, Mirabelle, to the podcast, and just thank you so much for giving us your time and your energy so generously. We look forward to talking with you and learning with you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. We really felt into the essence of our connection. And I think it's a very auspicious day to be recording this podcast. It's the ninth day of this Navratri. So, really, the way it has come together, there's something beyond what we understand. And I'm excited and patient to feel how this unfolds.
Yes, thank you so much. Would you like to tell us just a little bit about yourself so that we can get a sense of where all of your insight and wisdom is coming from?
Mm. I think the insight and the wisdom is coming from Ma, for sure, from the Divine Mother. Um, I don't understand her. I cannot connect much to her form, to her stories. I find them all interesting, but it was not, this connection is not out of choice or logic or anything that I could decipher, which is what I usually like to do in life. and and I think that, in terms of, there has been this preparation for this overwhelming energy of Ma, because she's a mother, right? Sometimes she's a little suffocating. Sometimes she's extremely playful and liberating. Sometimes she's very adamant about what she wants and exactly how she wants it. And so it's a very human kind of relationship, even though it's not. And I think the journey for me, Ma is, like Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu, to that goddess who is in all forms. And I grew up in Bombay, India, in a Roman Catholic family, growing up in what we call a colony, like I guess you could say like a condo strata, something like that, full of Sikhs with a Gurudwara, 2 stories, 2 floors under my home. I went to a school that was run by a Muslim trust, and studied classical Indian dance because I was just enamored by it. And, you know, it was just so varied, the whole experience, and I was not conscious of it at all. But now I see that it gave me this innocent experience of the goddess in all forms, and all are beautiful.
Thank you for that. For so many reasons. And that seems like a really beautiful way to transition into the topic for our conversation today as well, which is continuity, santati. And we'll be able to explore continuity in a few different avenues this morning or this afternoon, this evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. And what I love about this conversation is the application that it has to both our practice and, I think for all of us, most significantly, our life. How our practice shows up in our life informs our life. So we're excited to dive in. Karina, would you like to take it from here, love?
Absolutely. I think a nice place to start would be maybe just with the question, and I guess there are two sides to this coin. If you were to say, continuity in practice or continuity, in life practice is ... How would you describe that? And then the flip side of that is, what does the absence of that look like or mean, or how does the absence of that also manifest? So what is it? How does it show up? And what is the absence of it? And how does that show up?
I think there's just one word for me in terms of what continuity offers, and that is trust. I think, I grew up a lot with a lot of questions, right? Going to church, and then I went to school and there were like prayers in Arabic. We didn't have to say them, but I was surrounded by them. And then learning classical Indian dance and the mantras and everything. So I had a lot of questions. And I remember the priest always said to me, Mirabelle, you have to have faith. And I couldn't get it. And I said, but I want to know what's wrong with asking, what's wrong with, when I was like 9 years old, or, like first Holy Communion class, like not, not too old, not too young. And the priest said to me, it says in the Bible, if you have faith, even the size of a mustard seed, something, I can't remember what was after that, but I remembered mustard seed, and I felt like, oh my God, I'm so awful. I like, this is what I should have at least. And I don't even have that. And I want to have it, but I don't know how. I don't know how to understand it. I don't know how to recognize it or experience it. And through that unfolding over the years with regular sadhana or daily spiritual practice, what has come to me is trust. Trust is a connection. It's not one way. It is a relationship. Trust unfolds from patience, from acceptance, from commitment as well. Not to find or look for the ideal time or the ideal teacher or the ideal practice or the ideal situation, because there is no such thing. But to just engage in commitment, and then as we watch things unfold through our self-effort, which breaks down sort of, or I'd say starts to soften the hold of perception and prejudice and ego's tenacity, what unfolds is we're able to see patterns, and then beyond the patterns we're able to witness or be shown that we are witnessing. And so it's like a cumulative thing. Over time, the trust just arrives. It's not something, it's not like an infatuation. I always feel like relationship with sadhana, it's like, what is your practice to you? Is it an infatuation? Is it a fad? Is it like, what do you call it? A short-term arrangement, or what is it like? And then based on that, we know how we feel inside and how it unfolds in life. So, for the flip side, not having continuity to me is It's like feeling thorns in the heart. In dryness, like the cactus, it has thorns, but it's very moist and very fleshy inside, and it can stay with those opposites. But if there's no continuity, I feel like it's dry. It's dry inside. It's famished. It's parched, cracking. It's unbearable. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what came now.
It absolutely does. And I'm thinking of, somebody who might be listening to this who says, I would love to have more continuity in my practice, and I would love to have that degree of trust. And there's a gap between that and where I am. And the challenge is overcoming, or, being able to bridge that gap. And so I'm interested in another two-part question. What have been some of the challenges that you've experienced in establishing and maintaining both continuity and trust in your own journey? And also in your capacity as a teacher, if you had a student who came to you and said, I would love that and I'm not there at the moment, what would you offer that student in that moment?
I don't think we're ever there because we can only be here. And every here is a bindu or a dot on this in the circle. And it's necessary. And the circle, because it's whole and it's circular, it is embracing of everything. And so the first thing I'd say is know that you're here. And here is not a coincidence. It's not an accident. Even if it seems like it, it's grace. And here is exactly where I need to be, where I am right now. I ask myself, why do I need to be more as a teacher as well? Just this morning, actually, just before we got on this call, I have been considering for a few weeks, there have been some opportunities that came to me that I thought my teacher deserves these opportunities. These are not, like, I don't know as much as him. And at the same time, I understood because of the way that I can communicate and, sort of I am like this bridge between India and the West, and my command over the language, and, who knows, I was trying to justify it. I said, okay, probably that's why, I was asked to do this. But there's always a little bit of doubt, and I want to say doubt is allowed. Doubt creates space for growth. It creates space for humility. And just before, I had a very strong, I wouldn't say strong, I just had a very beautiful meditation this morning. And what came to me was, you don't need to know all the information. You just need to share the experience. And that's these two different words, abhyas or study, and anubhav or experience. And I noticed, because of my own doubt and insecurity for maybe a month or so, Well, I think it's always been there. They always exist, right, in different degrees, and I'm at peace with that. I'm always looking to see like where you guiding me. And yesterday I was just saying like I just want anubhav. I don't want so much vidya. Like I don't want so much knowledge. It's gonna be thousands of lifetimes, if not more, before. I mean, there's just so much when it comes to yoga and Vedanta and Tantra. And like it's almost like gathering this bank balance, right? That you don't know what to do with because it's so full, and it's so full that you don't even know how to direct it or share it, or like it's overwhelming. And so I wanted to, Karina, I wanted to share about doubt before I share about continuity and trust, and where we are right now. And to keep this continuity, I think it's a relationship. So there's the self effort, which we do through sadhana, and then there's grace. And grace is always present. And there are some times that grace feels more accessible than others. And we have, the ancient science of Jyotish, which helps us to understand and navigate um, how to. It's not really like fortune telling or like saying what's going to happen in your life, though it is, it depends on, who you sort of have your birth chart read by. And it lets us know when grace may be more accessible so we can intensify our self-effort. And sometimes we don't need to intensify our self-effort. Depending on our dosha, sometimes we need to just stop making so much self-effort. so um, that's a tool. And my own journey with continuity has been extremely challenging. My primary dosha and Ayurveda, like my tendency is vata, like air, and pitta, fire. Not, it's wonderful in many ways, but it's also very erratic. And I was always a free spirit, didn't like rules ever. Always stuck to them because I was Miss Goody Two Shoes. I always wanted to be liked. So I stuck to the rules, not because I believed in them, but because I needed the approval. I thrived on it. And then I realized it took me to a time and a point in my inner landscape where I was so fed up of the thoughts, and I couldn't run away from people and situations, because even if I did, the thoughts stayed with me, and I wanted to kind of end my life. I was pretty certain that was like the only solution. And then I went to Vipassana. I was 16 years old, and I randomly met somebody that was very cute and had just this guy, and he spoke about Vipassana, and I was like, I think I should do this. And so a friend of mine and myself went to Vipassana 10 days in silence. Vata predominant people are very talkative. And that was like torture. I got sick the first 3 days, and I was like, no, I'm going to stay with this. And at the end of the 10th day, I was really like, I felt so light, and almost like, if that's what levitation felt like, I felt like that's what was going to happen to me in a moment. And that sort of solidified the trust to say, hey, you know what? Let me just commit to practice. And it's got me so much in like 10 days. Imagine what else it could do. And the truth is, after that, because it does sound like a soap opera and life is like that, I fell off the wagon again many times. Yeah, and I think, that's okay too. It's how to find kindness for ourselves, not the excuses, but the kindness to say, okay, let's get on back again. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that because it feels like all of it just feels like a big hug. And I love a big hug.
Me
Um,
too.
I have, I have another question for you, and then I'll hand over to Nat. And it's sort of a question about, there's the practice itself, and then something that you've spoken a lot about also is the relationship that we have with the practice. And I'm interested in your perspective on, there's practice as mirror, and our practice will obviously reflect a lot back to us, about what's happening for us. And then there's that experience that we sometimes have where practice might be actually just sort of like a pleasure seeking endeavor. Like we just want to do the practices that feel nice rather than the ones that are good for us. And then maybe at the other end of the spectrum, there's that sense of I'm so determined to be committed to my practice that I'm going to stick with this practice that may not be good for me just for the sake of my desire to be committed. And so I would be really interested to hear what you have to say about that, and about navigating that sort of spectrum between it's uncomfortable right now, but there's something in there, in that discomfort for me, or I'm doing this because it feels nice and I'm avoiding the discomfort, or this is uncomfortable but it's actually not serving me, and how somebody might exercise the discernment that would allow them to kind of navigate those questions.
That's a very good question, Karina. I feel like there are several layers to this, to attempting to answer this. One is, I just want to put into perspective what I mean by practice, because practice can mean different things to different people. So for me, practice or sadhana, sadhan is a vehicle, and sadhana is the vehicle to getting from sadhana siddhi. Not in terms of the supernatural siddhis, but siddhis more like, to me, it's more like clarity and feeling into the heart of the truth as it is meant to be experienced in a moment or in a period. And so practice, sadhana would be the whole way of living life, which is what yoga is. And of course, there will be, ups and downs. And I'm going to give you a really mundane example because I don't want to glorify the quiet times of sadhana, like the meditation or the, pranayama or whatever. Not like, I mean, those are absolutely like stunning, and like those are like the womb to me of the practice. But things like chopping vegetables, I don't enjoy cooking. I miss being in India and having like a Maharaj to cook. I really miss it. And so I notice resistance almost every time I have to cook, which is every day. So like yesterday afternoon, I was in between sessions, and I was having my daughter talk to me about after school, like what happened in school, and I was chopping okra, and in my mind I'm doing the mantra, so that even whatever is present, it is it's pacified a little bit and purified as well with the mantra. So both are present, like, oh my God, I have like 15 minutes to cut like 2 pounds of okra, right? And this is also my time with my little one. So I've got to be fully present for her and not chop my own fingers and chant the mantra in the back of my head and all of this. And yeah, so opposites will always be present, and I want to say this, and the degree shifts. And in terms of doing a sadhana, I think it's really important not to just randomly pick a practice to do. So, I just wrote about it, and um, everything is available to us right now. Like everything is on sale. Every yogic practice, every whatever, forget yoga, like anything is on sale right now. It's available. Just need to click a button. Lots of things are also free. But we are still inhabiting a sense of urgency, and we're still oscillating between emotions and perceptions. Like the world is literally oscillating between two extremes of perception, whether it's about politics or the vaccine or like whatever it is, right? And so understanding, I think it's important to get guidance on what practice is good for us, or more than good, because that takes me back to good and bad, which is limited. What practice is nurturing for us? And nurturing isn't always pleasant. From being a mom, I can say this with extreme honesty. Nurturing is sometimes firm, not aggressive, but firm. And having someone to be able to first understand, like, what's my Ayurvedic dosha? And what is it predominantly? My Prakriti? What is my Nivriti on a particular day at a particular time? And then what practice is suited? So in the Western mindset, and forgive me, I'm using this word quite loosely, but I think I mean more in a rational based mindset, right? Wherever that's kind of pan word. We think I have to force myself to do this because it's good for me. Like I have to exercise every day because it's good, but maybe we don't recognize my body is so exhausted now. I don't have the strength to exercise. I don't need to push myself to exercise. I need to rest. So Ayurveda would be able to guide us on, say if the ojas is depleted, and you're trying to say like, no, I need to do more like, asana, or more like, like whatever it is, right? Even pranayama, if the ojas is depleted, we do not want to do kumbhak or like, whole retentions. And then if we're forcing ourselves, because logically, no, retentions are where the magic of pranayama is. I need to be doing retentions. And I went through this myself. I kind of did this bad stuff to myself for a bit. And then you feel more depleted. And then we think, oh, this sadhana is not working for me. Or I need to find another teacher. I need to find another practice, another lineage, another something. And it's just like a trap. So understanding our doshas, to me, and it's something we are going to explore next term on Sadhana Club, it helps us meet ourselves with compassion, because then we understand, like, how are the elements interacting within me and how can I respond to them? Not force them into something. You can't force the elements. You can't force the elements. It's nature. We just can't do it. It requires so much effort to go against the flow of nature. And when we rationalize our sadhana so much, looking for logic, looking for validation, for feeling good about ourselves because I showed up and did my practice, or I did the same thing, or I did an advanced practice, and what we're missing is this compassion towards ourselves. So I think having guidance and understanding is really, really important to not swinging between these extremes.
Yeah, it seems to come back to trust as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. A guide that you can trust. and then also learning how to trust your own inner guidance.
Yeah, and that's what sadhana gives us, right? You know, perhaps like you, I've been through several, you know, challenges with teachers and lineages and, you know, all of that. And I remember it was about 2 years ago that there was this news of, you know, some kind of abuse in the lineage in the past. And it shook me up so much because I knew these things happen. I was like, well, in other lineages, not in mine. And all I had at that time, because for the first time in my life, apart from like nursing journey, I couldn't sleep. I was tormented, and I just came back to sadhana because it's the only thing I knew. And where had I received this sadhana from? This very lineage. But it gave me, and it's still giving me, I still don't have like one person that I can say like I have a guru in this living world. But there's that trust that has developed that doesn't need a person, doesn't need an intermediary. And one of my teachers actually said to me, a few weeks ago, I messaged him and I said, you know, he's a monk. And I said, you know, Swamiji, I haven't studied with you for so long. And he says, you don't need to study with me. You are a student of the Divine Mother, and she's choosing whoever you need to study with when you need to study. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, wow, you know, he's so right.
Yeah. I think there's a lot in that about where we can tap into continuity, and that it isn't something that we necessarily find in the external world. And if we're relying on other human beings as an intermediary, we will most likely be disappointed at some point in time. And if we can develop a relationship with the internal eternal, then while we will be challenged, disappointment in that doesn't really seem like a possibility.
Yeah. I feel to share with you something one of my teachers says, a little story. And I think it's very pertinent for this time, this whole yuga. We're only 5,000 years into Kali Yuga, so there's lifetimes more of this madness. And it was about an interview that someone had with the Dalai Lama. And this guy, I don't know, was hard talk. It was one of those, like, you know, people that, you know, make people cry on their interviews or, you know, whatever. And this guy, the host, asked the Dalai Lama, look at you sitting here looking so peaceful, talking about compassion, you know, and, you know, whatever else he was talking about. Don't you ever feel bad that the whole world is suffering? And here you are talking about peace. Like, don't you feel their pain? Like, are you inhuman because you're so compassionate? Or, you know, so he was quite kind of touchy in the way that he asked the question. And my memory of it, because I never watched this, it's just my memory from my own perception in the story, is, you know, the Dalai Lama closed his eyes and then he said, I feel it all, but the peace is more. And what sadhana gives me through all the turbulence, which is ever present, is this almost like a blanket of peace. It's nourishing, it's comforting, it's stable, it's without urgency. The urgency, I'm not saying it doesn't arise, it does, but it doesn't stay for long. And that, I think, is a gift, that shift, the quicker shifts, or the more instant shifts are a gift of, I can only attribute it to waking up every day for years, you know, mostly at 4 a.m. and doing the same sadhana. I haven't changed my sadhana very much. it's really been like kind of you do the same thing. So you, whatever sadhana works for you, or that I would say your teacher has recommended for you, just doing that and not looking for like excitement. It's like, being in a marriage, you're going to be bored sometimes. It's normal. You're going to be a little disconnected sometimes. It's normal. You're going to be like passionately, madly in love and not want to leave each other for a moment, sometimes. And that's normal too. Like it's all part of the experience. So are we going to like say, oh, this marriage doesn't, like, it doesn't feel like, it's a bit boring now, I'm gonna just go find it? Like, yes, maybe, but what are we with at the end of the day in ourselves, is that question. Like, have I allowed myself to see how trust can sprout even through doubt? Because doubt, what is doubt? Doubt is just a seeking for trust, isn't it? So it just comes back to trust. And we're wired for that, for connection and trust. Yeah.
I've got to get back to our questions. I'm lost in the conversation. I'm loving it. So I think a good place to kind of jump back in is a conversation about this word santati. Am I saying it properly?
Yes, santati. Yes.
Santati. It sounds almost like sanctity.
Yeah, that's true.
There energetically feels like a correlation, maybe not according to the dictionary, but santati. So we have a basic understanding of the Sanskrit word santati as continuity. Do you have a deeper understanding of that particular word?
I'm not like a Sanskrit etymology expert. For me, the language, the Sanskrit is very sensuous, and the way that I feel, the way it moves in my mouth, and the way the prana moves. And I haven't studied the etymology of santati, so I don't want to, attempt something and be misleading.
That's very fair. Us either. The way that we were introduced to it in terms of practice and yoga as life is that it is this continuity, it's this through line which connects our practice with our life through an undercurrent of worldview. And this worldview in our tradition that the world and everything in it is beautiful because it is all an expression of the divine. And that by developing certain worldviews like that can become an anchor point for us in developing continuity or santati. Is there a particular worldview that you embrace that maybe is similar to that or completely divergent from that helps you to anchor into this steadiness, this through line of peace or trust?
As you asked me this, what was coming to me was understanding right now, this is what's coming, understanding prarabdha karma. It's the arrows being shot, and it's doing what it has to do. So whether we look at COVID or politics or healthcare or, racism or whatever it is that we're looking at, something is in motion. It doesn't mean that I have to be in inaction. But it also means that I don't have to jump to action for everything. And allowing myself to notice that this is something intense, and maybe I need to go out and say something about it, or maybe I need to do something in some inner work, or and that is Ma to me. That's, for me, Ma Shakti as Prana Shakti is creativity. Um, the way that, we can look at the world from Vedanta as like all Maya, which it is, of course, that point of view is very valid too. And then we can look at it, as you shared, it's all the creation, all the manifestation of the mother. And feeling into that for me is this, as you said, the sense of continuity, that it's not a result that we're not fixing anything, because everything is dynamic and ever shall be. And there is still stillness in the dynamic stillness, right?
There's so much to digest in everything that we've talked about. Although I know we could go on for hours and hours and hours, and I wish that we could. In the interest of time, we'll just say we'll press pause and we'll continue our conversation at some point.
Continuity.
Yes. Didn't even plan that. So a very gracious thank you from Karina and myself for your time and your energy and your generosity in sharing. We both adore you, and we feel really honored to be able to enjoy time and space with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really felt very warm in this conversation. And I know we've never physically met. I know we shall. And it's really grace-filled. And I just feel to say something that came to me just as you were speaking about continuity and connecting again. When I studied Latin ballroom dance, yes, I did, in Rochester, New York, way back. My teacher said to me, I think it was the waltz we were doing. Well, I was also doing standard ballroom, and he said to me, when you begin breathing in, and you begin the movement on the out breath. And remember that the music has never stopped. The music is always playing, and someone is always dancing. And you are just carrying on from where someone has left, or from where you are connecting back with the music that has always been there.
All three of us are dancers, so I think we all feel that in a really special way. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I think, Karina, you are muted right now if you wanted.
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Mirabelle. The whole thing just felt like an embrace.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if anyone is interested in learning more about Mirabelle, we'll have her contact information in the description of our podcast. And we would be happy to give you access to whatever she's offering at the time. Sadhana Club is definitely something to look into. It's a really rich, continuous offering that Mirabelle hosts and guides. And we'll provide some more information about that as well if you're interested. And we'll just ask that you subscribe to our podcast if you like what you're hearing, so you can return and continue this conversation with us as we endeavor to explore some of the nuances of yoga and the life that is yoga. And if you have any questions specifically for us or for Mirabelle, you can put those into the comments below. And we would also love to hear from you, your takeaway from this. What does continuity mean to you? How does this conversation feel to you? Is there any renewed inspiration or maybe a deepening of a sense of trust, or perhaps even a validation around some of the doubts that you have felt now or in the past. So with that, we will sign off, and thank you all for joining us as well.